Hey everyone, it's Pride Month, whether you like it or not. Yeah, time to fly that rainbow flag and turn up the erasure. June is here and it is queer. And I would like to celebrate this month by talking about a subject that I've never really had a chance to talk about yet until now. Queer representation in anime. Yes, despite what some idiot culture warriors would have you believe, in the world of anime and manga, there's quite a bit of representation of all people who are L, G, B, T, and especially Q. And as anime becomes more of an international product, that representation is only going to end up growing. At the same time, representation is not perfect. Anime does originate from a culturally conservative nation with its own prejudices baked into society, exacerbated by the vast majority of people who get to write the stories of anime and manga being cis straight men. While LGBTQ people do exist in Japan and are making strides in becoming more visible, there's still a long way to go. This does not mean, however, that we can put aside queerness in anime, especially retro anime. Even the anime of the old school is ripe for queer theory. There's quite a bit to talk about when it comes to anime and its relationship to queerness. It's the same for literature, it's the same for film, so it stands to reason that the same should apply to anime. But where to start? Where would be a good entry point for discussing queerness in anime and manga?
Tell me how you feel.
How I feel? Hey, what's that?
I guess that'll do.
KYOTO ビデオ
Randy Ryo McLean is a Japanese-American rookie officer who has just transferred to the 27th Precinct in New York City. Quiet and thoughtful, Ryo is a man with a calm, mature disposition and a heart of gold, but is nevertheless a shy man.
You really like Dee a lot, don't you?
Will I? Excuse me, but what exactly are you implying?
He is partnered with Dee Leitner, a more experienced, full-blooded American cop who is of the loose cannon but gets results variety. He is ill-mannered, boisterous, and loud, making him the perfect foil for Ryo to complete the formula for a buddy cop duo. Together, they solve crime.
Does it bother you? It does, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
The way Cindy's looking at Randy, I think she likes him.
It looks that way?
So are the two of you lovers?
Hey, you're a pretty straightforward kind of girl now, aren't you?
But when I say they are partners, I mean they are partners. Yes, Ryo and Dee are dating and have been for quite some time at the start of this anime. In fact, they are currently trying to get away from solving crimes and are now vacationing at an English B&B to get some much needed R&R. Dee, however, has an ulterior motive. Through some finagling of his own, he's using this vacation as a means to get some alone time with Ryo and maybe, just maybe, progress their relationship from just hand-holding and French kissing into something more.
It's getting late and I gotta find a way to sneak into his room.
Wait for me, Ryo. Something tells me I'm gonna score tonight.
Easier said than done, however, because the couple's two adopted street urchins, Becky and Carol, have also decided to tag along and have, maybe intentionally, poured some ice water on Dee's plans. Not only that, but a body is soon discovered in a nearby lake. Soon, strange disappearances begin happening and mysterious strangers begin to prowl outside. It seems like Ryo and Dee are going to be working on this couple's retreat after all. In short, this anime is fake and gay. 1998's Fake marks a milestone for this channel. For the first time in the 6 years since I started, we are looking at anime that comes from the underrepresented yet still important genre known as boys love, or as it's better known internationally, yaoi. Manga and anime devoted to male-on-male attraction, made by women, for women. And out of all the boys love based anime out there I could have chosen, Fake was the one that made the most sense. The name might not sound important today, mostly thanks to it being a nightmare to search for in our SEO-driven future, but it's a name some of you should know. because it was one of two of the first boys' love titles to ever be localized in America, with the other being the early 2000s Fujoshi mainstay Gravitation. Yes, this manga and the OVA it was based on is the first step that led to an era of fandom defined by anime/fic, the first shot that led to numerous yaoi paddles flooding convention halls. In terms of importance in American Fujoshi history, it could be up there with the first spurt fanfic. But it's been 30 years since the manga debuted, and more than 25 since the OVA came out. Times do change, and so do our perspectives on literature. Boys' love is not the force it was back in the day, thanks to it having to compete for shelf space with literature made by and for actual queer people. But does it even need to do that? How does fake look in the all too real cold light of history? Does it leave a bitter taste in the mouth, or is there still some shine left in the rainbow? Let's find out!
Tonight will not be in vain.
Before we get into the weeds about fake, some context might be needed. You can't really discuss the nature and history of a Japanese anime centered around male love without knowing some of the context about male love and its relation to Japanese art and culture. After all, Western norms are not the standard. Records of male homosexuality in Japan date all the way back to the Heian period of the 11th century, but they could have gone back even further, especially considering that the main religion of Shintoism has no set moral codes against sex. Evidence was not just found in courtly diaries referencing affairs emperors had with their male courtiers, but also the classic literary work The Tale of Genji, one passage describing the eponymous hero rejecting a lady and choosing instead to sleep with her younger brother because he was more attractive. This continues on into the Edo period, where male-dominated spaces, such as Buddhist monasteries, kabuki theaters, and the samurai warrior class, are enclaves of the concept of male-male love.
They pledged loyalty to their brothers, prepared to lay down their lives, and spilled their red blood in the act of ritual suicide. In this respect, the philosophy of Bushido has much in common with the path of male love.
Around this time, male homosexuality emerges as a constant presence in the arts. Tokugawa-era author and poet Ihara Saikaku wrote the famous work on the subject around this time, The Great Mirror of Male Love, a collection of short stories detailing romantic relationships between men in this period. The point is that, for most of Japanese history, homosexuality was not just accepted, it was a fact of life. There are accounts of Jesuit missionaries being aghast at how same-sex love was not just common, but also public. What changed all that?
Knock knock. It's the United States, with huge boats, with guns. Gunboats. Open the country. Stop having it be closed, said the United States.
With the opening of Japan's borders and subsequent ending of its policy of national isolation, the newly Christian Meiji government sought to form guidelines to form a new, more westernized Japanese state. This resulted in Japan taking cues from more Christian-based countries like Prussia, instituting the first anti-homosexuality laws. These would take form in the nation's first anti-sodomy laws, christened in 1872, but would later be replaced by a more general law criminalizing, quote, obscene acts. The Meiji government wanted to push out elements of the old Japan to remake the nation anew, and homosexuality was seen as one of those elements. Certainly not helped that the group still openly displaying same-sex love was the obsolete samurai class. Things only got worse at the turn of the 20th century when the social science of sexology took hold of the nation's intelligentsia. And while the field in Europe made strides in challenging the taboos of homosexuality, in Japan, it was used by the Meiji government to push a homophobic, eugenics-based ideology, claiming that homosexuality could cause men to degenerate into androgyny and assume the characteristics of women, pathologizing non-heterosexual behavior as a social ill that made for an unhealthy, non-westernized Japan. In short, the next time you see something homophobic in a Persona game, blame colonialism. Still, even with the negative legal and cultural shifts, male homosexuality endured, not just in underground clubs and scenes, but also in artistic circles. Through subtext, artists and writers inserted themes of homosexual romance in their works, even in the face of a more hostile society. And this would end up laying the groundwork for In 1961, writer Mari Mori wrote the novel A Lover's Forest. Following the relationship between a professor and his younger male lover, Mori's work stood out with how her prose took a fanciful, almost gothic tone inspired by European literature. For this reason, A Lover's Forest is considered to be an important precursor to the genre known as shonen-ai. Shonen-ai, literally meaning boys' love, is the earliest form of boys' love. Born out of the Gekiga movement, which sought to use the manga format to tell more serious and human stories, shonen-ai describes a genre of manga aimed at a female audience that centered around the romance between androgynous bishonen boys. The first true shonen-ai manga was Hideko Mizuno's Fire, which eroticized and depicted male same-sex romance in American rock and roll culture. But the true architects of the genre came from the storied Year 24 group of shoujo mangaka, authors such as Moto Hagio, whose depiction of star-crossed gay romance in The Heart of Thomas was greatly influential to future shoujo romances, or Keiko Takemiya's The Song of Wind and Trees, who used the shonen-ai genre as a means to explore complex and taboo themes beyond the typical scope of shoujo at the time. These works' influence would be primarily felt in the emergence of the doujinshi culture in the mid-70s, where female fans would draw fan comics that depicted their favorite male characters or celebrities in male-on-male relationships. And since they were fan works, they were allowed to be more sexually explicit than anything being published in mainstream periodicals. This leads to the coining of the term we know as yaoi. Coined by Year 24 group members Yasuko Sakata and Akiko Hatsu, yaoi is meant to be an ironic euphemism. The word is a portmanteau of yamanashi, ochinashi, imanashi, which translates to no climax, no point, no meaning. The authors know they're making self-indulgent pornography that's made only for their pleasure, and they've chosen to embrace that. Even then, yaoi ended up allowing for the natural evolution of shonen-ai, going from beyond the androgynous European-influenced stories into more diverse narratives, the biggest of which was Akimi Yoshida's 1985 manga Banana Fish. Breaking from the fantastic period pieces that was typical of shoujo manga, Yoshida's manga was set in the mean streets of 1980s New York with realism-based artwork and storytelling centered around action set pieces, at the same time continuing the motif of homosexuality as one of the story's main themes. Banana Fish was greatly influential to shoujo manga with boys' love themes in them for most of the 80s and 90s, and this is where we finally come to Fake. Written by Sanami Mato and published in the shoujo magazine B-Boy, Fake appears to be born out of the desire to marry the wispy, fantastical shonen-ai era of boys' love with the gritty Occidental boys' love spearheaded by Banana Fish. And you do see that in the manga. It has the capacity for both being an old-fashioned romantic melodrama as well as a serious cop story. And from what I've read, it does appear to keep those two sides balanced. It's a good primer on the potential of boys' love narratives beyond the kissy-kissy fan service. It's difficult to gauge how popular Fake was during its 6-year run, but it had to have made some noise. I mean, it was the first boys' love title to make it over here in the States, not just the anime courtesy of Media Blasters, but also the manga, which was provided by those clowns at Tokyo Pop, but hey, you can't win them all. And the OVA, despite coming out in a period where the format was descending into a slow, painful death, got a very A-list voice cast in the Japanese version. D was voiced by the then super popular Tomokazu Seki, who's best known as the voice of Domon Kashu in G Gundam and Vaughn in Escaflowne.
相変わらず鈍いなてめえは。焼いてんだよ俺は。
And Ryo was voiced by Nobuo Tobita, aka Camille in Zeta Gundam.
なんだか最初から慣れ慣れしいくせに、でも憎めない感じで、どこか引きつけられるところのあるやつだと。
Boy, 2 Gundam actors and 1 yaoi. Casting knows their audience. And if Fate needed even more credentials for its gayness, it aired on US TV on the Logo channel in 2007 as part of their queer animation anthology series Alien Boot Camp. You know, back when that channel actually was a place for LGBT entertainment and wasn't just a repository for RuPaul's Drag Race and Will and Grace reruns. Man, linear TV is so dead. But with all that historical and cultural context, the question remains the same. How is Fate as an actual anime years later? Fake is an anime that came out around the time where, even as the OVA format was on its way out, it was still a good area for anime that was deemed too hot for broadcast. As a result, there was a miniature boom of boys love OVAs in the mid to late 90s, most of which were incredibly pornographic, and the ones that have stuck around the cultural memory have done so for entirely the wrong reasons.
Gentlemen, behold! Corn!
Fake having a run in a published magazine was obviously not going to be as spicy as its contemporaries. Dee and Ryo are a dating couple who have gotten to the French kissing stage of their relationship, and that's where they're going to stay. Which is too bad for Dee, because the main tension of this OVA appears to hinge on whether or not he will get to fuck Ryo on their vacation time. Based off of an actual story arc from the manga, the fake OVA has less to do with the two of them taking a bite out of crime, more so than it is about them trying to sink their teeth into each other. A good chunk of this OVA feels reminiscent of those 80s romantic comedy series like Maison Ikkoku or Kimaguri Orange Road. Two guys wanting to get alone time with each other, and one of them really wants to take their relationship to the next level. Perhaps a little too much. A lot of the setup involves Dee going out of his way to make sure he can get into Ryo's dress slacks, bribing Bicky so that he doesn't come with, begging the chief for extra time off, trying to make everything come together so that he can get some action with his partner in policing.
JJ isn't here. Car isn't here. The chief isn't here. And my mortal evil enemy, Bicky, is not here. Thanks to Bicky, I had to lay out an extra $100 just to get this chance.
Of course, the best laid plans lead to the ensuing hijinks. Bicky and Harold decide to forego Dee's bribe and tag along anyways, and now babysitting duty has been forced on the two trying to enjoy their romantic outing. But it is kind of funny to see a tall, dark, and handsome masculine man like Dee being reduced to his wits' end by a Mona Marshall voiced shitty kid.
Nah, I didn't forget, but I already spent it all, so there.
You son of a...
What's this about $100?
Huh? Oh, it's nothing really, nothing at all.
As for the technical aspects, there's not really much to say. This is an anime done by Industry Workforce JC staff, so while it does have that washed out look that a lot of anime from the last days of cell animation carried, it's more than competent. Director Iku Suzuki is putting his best foot forward in the boarding process, timing out the jokes so that they can be snappy, making what little action scenes we do get feel exciting and tense, and when things actually calm down for the romantic scenes, you get the palpable feeling that love truly is in the air between these two men. Not bad for the director who gave us Dark Cats.
Is it something funny?
I mean, it's just, you don't usually just come right out and say those sort of things, Dee.
Come off it. You know I'm a very honest guy.
Yeah, you are. I know that very well.
Of course, though this might be a romantic comedy, there still is police work involved. After a failed attempt at getting romantic out on the lake, Ryo and Dee end up discovering the body of a Japanese woman floating nearby. Though they are suspicious, they decide that it's best left to the local authorities and that they should enjoy their vacation. Which they do, as both of them end up forming a good relationship with their two neighbors, Elisa and Cindy. Ryo and Elisa especially end up bonding over the fact that they are both Japanese Americans. But in the middle of the romantic hijinks are weird goings on. There's a mysterious blonde man in a trench coat stalking around the property. His name is Berkeley Rose, and no one seems to know if he's investigating the murders or is the cause of them. We also have Ghost? Though it's a murder mystery, I don't think it's a very good one. Both Ryo and Dee barely do any detective work, even after both Elisa and Cindy disappear. It's not until Berkeley, the one actually doing the detective work, basically informs Dee that he left Ryo alone with the murderer that the case starts coming together. The culprit is Leonard Henry, the owner of the B&B. He has a special hatred for any Japanese person because a group of Japanese men assaulted and murdered his daughter years ago, and that has given him a murderous brand of bigotry.
My daughter was killed by you. Killed by you, Japanese. That is why I'm afraid you must die, Master Ryo.
And unfortunately for Ryo, he stumbles across the crime scene where Leonard has already murdered Elisa as well as Cindy for being a witness. It's crazy just how dark and violent the third act of this OVA gets. Not just 15 minutes ago, Dee and Ryo were currently dealing with the fallout of their hyperactive twink co-worker JJ deciding to also impose on their getaway. And now Ryo has to flee from a homicidal Britishman with a knife.
Okay, now, how about just one little kissy poo?
Wait, JJ! It's me! It's Ryo!
Later.
Oh my, I missed.
But of course, Dee arrives in the nick of time to rescue Ryo, Leonard gets arrested, and it ends on a bittersweet note by fulfilling the murderer's final request of burning all of his daughter's possessions. I don't think he really earns that tragic pathos, but whatever. We get an epilogue back in New York and find out that someone new has joined the force.
Allow me to introduce myself. As of today, I'm the department's new commissioner, Lieutenant Berkeley Rose. Very pleased to meet you.
In the manga, this whole story is just set up to insert Berkeley into the story and create somewhat of a tense love triangle. And who wouldn't want that guy? Looks like a sane Albert Wesker. A good spice for romantic tension between Dee and Ryo. Even though the murder mystery is so half-baked that it might as well be raw and the comedic antics are a bit on the broad side, overall, Fake is a serviceable hour-long OVA. But we can't just end there. The reason why we're here is to see how Dee and Ryo hold up as a couple. So let's apply some queer theory to this yaoi, boys and girls. If you were paying attention, which I hope you have been, you'll notice in the history section that a lot of the influential authors of boys love manga are women, and that most of the people who consume boys love stories are other, mostly heterosexual, women. Sure, there are gay men who do read and enjoy these stories, but they are very much in the minority. Naturally, this has stirred up discourse that has been going on since around the time of Fake was first published. In the mid-90s, feminist and gay magazines in Japan became a battleground for what is referred to as the yaoi debate. Actual gay men in Japan have posited that yaoi is nothing more than cheap fetishizing pornography that does not depict homosexual men in a realistic manner. The fujoshi have responded by saying that the depiction of realistic homosexuality is not the point of yaoi, and that it's just escapist fantasy from a misogynistic society. These debates have become international in the past decade, and while I do think people have overcorrected in trying to critique yaoi and the fujoshi who love it, there are some elements in the genre that cause its critiques to have merit. That's a subject too broad for this video, so we're just gonna focus on Ryo and Dee as characters. On paper, Ryo and Dee do feel like they fit the stereotypical boys love couple. The top is a tall brunette with a forceful personality and a masculine demeanor. The bottom is a light-haired twink who is shy and submissive, but the two lovebirds are way more nuanced than that. Ryo is definitely quiet and reserved, but he's not submissive. He carries himself with a lot more maturity than Dee does, and at this point in their relationship appears to be the one who can keep Dee under control. If anything, he's the adult in the relationship.
You need to sleep it off. We can switch rooms for tonight and...
Gonna puke!
Wow!
I don't feel so good.
Hold it in. Don't throw up here.
Dee, meanwhile, is the edgy bad boy with a strong personality, but he's also generally impulsive and kind of a pervert as well. He's the answer to the question of, what if Ryo Saiba was a 3 on the Kinsey scale? This personality does give him layers as well as provide the backbone for the OVA's humor.
Is there anything wrong with being a 24-hour cop?
Nah, well, I'm just so impressed.
Good morning!
At the same time, it does result in a scene where he drunkenly tries to force himself onto Ryo in a scene that's supposed to be played for laughs.
There's nothing to worry about! You don't have to be afraid! Just lie back and leave everything to me now, Ryo!
I don't know about all that. Regardless, it's made clear that Ryo and Dee are two consenting adult men in a relationship with each other. There's not a will they won't they being played out here, there's no blackmail, there's no gay for pay, this is a romantic dating couple. The only real tension in this relationship, and it's the engine that drives Dee motivation, is that Ryo doesn't seem to want to take their relationship to beyond just kissing. And it doesn't seem to be trauma, but an actual clash of personalities. Ryo's too reticent to actually be physical in their relationship, and it's usually up to Dee to get him to come out of his shell.
He's always really cold to me, you know?
Listen, Listen to me, it's gonna be all right. The whole time we were playing cards, every time you turned to talk to us, he was looking at you.
Are you sure?
I give you my word of honor.
Their relationship also causes waves within their inner circle. The reason why D doesn't like Bicky is because Bicky would rather D and Rio be apart. Not for any homophobic reasons, but because he knows D has a reputation as a lady killer and is probably just gonna end up breaking Rio's heart after he hits it and quits it. If anything, it's by phobic reasons. By contrast, Carol is the one trying to play matchmaker and basically being the two guys' coach and trying to make their relationship blossom into something much more. Can you say audience surrogates?
So, for $100, you're just gonna let Rio lose his virginity?
I don't think it'll be that easy. Rio definitely knows how to take care of himself.
Yeah, but Dio'll definitely get real aggressive this time. Just the two of them? He might finally have his way.
In summary, Fake, while being a lot better than some of its contemporaries released around this time, still is held back by some shortcomings. Rio and D can be seen as a believable queer couple with how they feel more like characters than archetypes, but they still fall prey to a lot of boys love writing tropes that reveals a lot of the story's own self-indulgence. When I was watching this, it felt like I was bearing witness to a piece of fanfiction. It's got romantic tension, broad comedy, cast of characters showing up with flimsy reasoning, a surprisingly dark climax, and some teasing fan service. Just replace Rio and D with Dave Strider and Carcat and you got AO3's hottest work of the week. It genuinely makes me wonder how much of this OVA influenced future fanfiction works written by Fujoshi. If proven, it could be evidence that Fake was more influential than people think. Today, however, it's just fluff. And that's okay. The gays may have more proper representation in their media today, but Fujoshis deserve to have their junk food too. And it would be fair to say that gay men, especially in America, may have dug this, especially since it came out in an era where queer media was inaccessible for vast swaths of people. Who's to say that seeing these two blushing, grown anime men kiss passionately made a difference for some people? Classic anime is important. That includes classic yaoi. Because even if things have gotten better and will continue to get better, they wouldn't have happened without a starting point.
Good night, D.
Thank you all for watching. If you like this video or want to support this channel, please donate to my Patreon. Each dollar can give you early access to my videos as they come out, as well as keep the channel running a bit more smoothly. You can also subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, or just like this video. Either way, you'll be helping me out. That's all for now. See you for the next round of tapes.
Wait for me, Rio. Something tells me I'm gonna score tonight.
You're drooling, you big pervert!
Oops, that's not good. Huh?